Part 2, Chapter 5, Food Chain. 1 week. If it hadn't been for the calendar posted on the fridge being tallied with each passing day, then I never would have guessed so much time slipped through my fingers. I can't remember any fleeting moment that stood out among the rest, just a rugged mental footprint of waking and coping. I don't know when it began exactly, but I tripped and fell down the valley. Depression is a drug I've been forced to take every so often growing up, though I never fully grasped the feeling. It always reared its ugly head into my life for a day or maybe two, but this was different. The moment light entered my eyes each morning after his death, I felt the rush of cold remembrance. Right away, I stewed until the regretful thoughts boiled my brain. Alone during the afternoon hours with only myself to console. Even more strange, the day after my father's murder, Alice and I shared our last small conversation before bed. Since then, she hasn't spoken to me at all. Not a whisper or a pulse, no hint of her existence. Her resonating voice and the nasty crawl I endured under her scrutiny burrowed someplace deep inside. I could recall an hour of lucidity, maybe 4 days into this transitional period after the funeral. A time when the veil I suffocated under had lifted and I could breathe. But she didn't speak to me when I prodded. Vague details of me examining myself in the bathroom left me in a declining state where maybe, just maybe, I had imagined her. Sin, the jagged claws, a narrative separate from my own making where I was solely responsible for his demise. None of that was real. Somewhere along the way, I snapped, went crazy. I almost believed it. That notion only hurtled me deeper into constricted chaos, wallowing the overbearing hours on the couch without the want for food, attention, or even a shower. I lay there, day in and day out, watching the television and refusing to share my thoughts, no matter how much Tansu or her mom inquired. I think now I understand my dad just a bit more. The pull of dissociation, the blissful apathy of burying yourself deeper into your own skin, the comfort it wrought. Undoubtedly, grief was crushing, but I didn't struggle with tears or anger, just nothingness. Exist without existing, breathe without consequence, and sleep without a single care. Though sleep wasn't exactly my favorite leisure. The nightmares were where I truly found agony. Horrid depictions of that evening replayed over and over. I couldn't escape it. Eventually, I came out on the other side as a bit more than my broken self. The pieces started to fit into something tangible, and I re-engaged my basic human functions. Thinking back to this empty week, I recognized how far I had come, especially in the past 30 hours. For one, I ate an entire meal and had a shower. Bliss is the only word I can use to describe the rush of hot water on my skin. The clemency I relished in was unparalleled, and now I'm here. I'm fully here again. It's Wednesday, late at night, 10 days after my father's death. Alice still refuses to speak. The last thing I remember, she said there was something disruptive about my vessel. Her absence has left me alone to sort out these horrors. Things I can never tell anyone. I hadn't even given Joey a call or left the house apart from nighttime sky viewing or the occasional ride to the store with Kari. These thoughts occupied me in silence as I lay on the couch, the television flickering the dark away. The volume was off to not disturb Tansu sleeping on the floor. Subtitles allowed me to follow along when I wasn't mid-thought. Glancing over the edge at her soft face, I imagined a smile, appreciation for her refusing to let me sleep alone out here. Every single night, without fail, she slept on the floor, and we talked until she fell asleep. Stupid things to keep my brain churning and away from a bad place. I don't know if she understands just how much those little talks about nothing really helped keep me grounded. I learned a lot about her during those late hours. She used to play piano and sing, something I never would have pinned on her. Though I did my best not to assume based on her ethnicity, I learned she really does speak Japanese, but only for her grandparents over the phone. I learned my self-detrimental jokes don't typically go over well, and she has never played a video game. I made a special note of that, and would surely get Joey over here with a console for game night. I smirked at the thought of her and her mom struggling to handle a controller. Still, no matter where I went inside my head or in the world around me, I found myself always mentally circling back to Alice. Half of me believed she wasn't even real. A figment I conjured through some weird delirium as a split personality to justify my madness and exonerate his death. Maybe I stabbed him with a knife and buried it with my bloody clothes. Paired with that nagging plot was another oddity. The message which was passed along to Kari from the police. It sounded ridiculous, but they requested I not return home. One final duffel bag was dropped off by a single officer. I sifted through it to discover most of my mementos were collected and safe. Old handwritten poems, childish doodles, birthday cards, and some clothes that I assumed belonged to my mother. My winter boots and a few miscellaneous things were also stuffed into the bag. I appreciated the efforts of Miss Curlin for getting these things, but my heart sank when I realized something was missing. Something I had to have no matter what. Before the officer left, I asked him if I could go inside to get a few more things. I was told they would arrange a time for me, but I hadn't heard back since then. Their lingering warning of the building being definitely unsafe bothered me. The car was dropped off. Apparently my dad had been driving around unregistered for almost a year. However, I didn't have my license. Hell, I'd never even started driver's ed. So, after the first day of it sitting in the driveway, Kari found a car storage place and had the police help her drop it off. It would be safe and out of sight until I was ready to go get my license. Something my anxiety could do without. All the while, I couldn't stop thinking about how the police treated my house. The investigation was done after 5 days. They pulled out and just left the building as it was. Unsafe. It could be the defiant nature in me, but there is this unrelenting urge to return home. Not an innate desire of my own personal reasons, but something more. Like a magnetism Alice and I shared, pulling me every second with only minor fluctuation. That, and the underlying mystery of it all, intrigued me. It was always in my dreams and constantly wriggling into the back of my thoughts. I don't know why. As far as I was concerned, that building was a festering breeding ground for my own hatred. Yet, here I was, rising from the couch late into the evening and making my way toward the front door. My pajamas were all dirty from endless rest. As a result, I planned on sleeping in an old gray long sleeve and fitted pair of jeans until laundry could be done tomorrow. The way my mind associated this circumstance used it as fuel to justify my impending adventure. At the front door, I slipped on my shoes and gathered an emergency flashlight from the little closet nook, ready to depart. I considered one more time. Returning during the day risked many things. The police showing up or being already present. Kari or Tansu returning home early to find me missing. A handful of other anxieties, but going there now gave me the freedom I needed to get in and out. Plus, lately, I've been crepuscular and grown much more comfortable in the dark. I stepped outside, envisioning the bathroom light I left on should Tansu wake up and see an empty couch. She never wakes during the night and sleeps heavily. I know this after countless sleepless nights where I watched movies alone with her at my feet. I wouldn't be long. The first real challenge was the driveway light sensor, but I was able to move along the side of the house and cross over the lawn until I hit the pavement. After getting out of sight, I began my trek with anticipation in every step. I kept the flashlight tucked in my back pocket, not willing to use it now, otherwise a neighboring house might see. I took note of the looming seclusion that oozed from the trees and attempted to pressure my imagination. I continued slowly along the ocean of charcoal visibility until I reached the first turn. There were no houses on this road, so I felt secure enough to test the flashlight. Paranoia rampant, I aimed it forward and measured the distance in my head, about 20 feet of yellow light. The atmosphere was muted, nearly devoid of all sound apart from my own footsteps, which made a slightly haunting echo that almost sounded like I was being followed. At this time of night, I had to be wary of my surroundings. Wild animals such as bears, raccoons, and coy dogs wandered through here, though it may be because of my developing narcissism or blind stupidity, I was not afraid of any wild animal. Still, I cautiously scanned the trees, left and right. Though the start of the forest was 10 or so feet from the road, I could see every individual trunk and bush, outlines plainly distinct from the shadow, almost glowing to me even without the flashlight. My house was a 3-minute drive, so give or take 20 minutes to walk. Safety was forfeited, but I did not feel entirely threatened. Retracting my vision, I focused on what could be heard. In this state of focus, I could hear a new sound in the distance grow. Rising up louder and louder with each step was a melodic tune of chirping pond frogs, caressing my ears from both sides. Confirming life exists should be uplifting, but the synchronized cacophony of assorted nature was unpleasant at the very least. I picked up the pace with suspense in my gut. By this time, I had taken the final turn which led to a long strip which held my home. A tap on the pavement behind me pinched my eardrums. I whipped around, blasting the flashlight where I had already been. Almost perfect silence. I held my breath. Alice started to breathe. She was viewing attentively. I swallowed. Turning back to the road ahead, I took another step. Unsure of what sense to rely on, I settled on what I could see. Another minute passed, and I came upon my old driveway. I hardly recognized it as my own, although identifying the overturned, rusty bathtub at the end of my driveway proved it to be my former home. This tub was left by my mother. She turned a junk tub into a beautiful garden accessory, filling it with soil and planting flowers. At the time, it gleamed proudly in the daylight and was indicative of a carefree nature of this home long ago. That was then. Now the dirt is dry and the plants degraded from years of neglect. It lay now as a relic of the past. The forest that surrounded seemed to engulf the driveway. Tall and short trees alike hung lower than ever before, drooping with an invisible weight that made the driveway appear almost like a tunnel. I found it cryptically amusing to be so deeply fearful of the place I once called my home. Despite the unknown, I gathered my courage and made my way into the dark. The wind blew through the trees, rustling leaves and sending a chill across my body. As soon as I could see the front of my house, I stopped. "There it is," I whispered. A neutral gaze occupied my face. The porch door had been ripped from the hinges and tossed in the walkway. Staring down at it, the flashlight beam revealed a laminated piece of paper stapled to the wooden frame. Foreclosed. My stomach flipped. My eyes recentered on the front door within the porch, and it too was open, seemingly kicked in as it clung by only the bottom hinge. This tense in my gut was potent. A saturated nostalgia bubbled within while at the same time fighting a vibrant disconnect. It's difficult to explain, but the building had this mass to it. A dense aura rolled from the confines like sludge water. My back straightened. I felt at home, truly, but not in a familiar way. Not in the way of correlating this place with years of memories, but some unnatural interpretation. I could hear the wind skip leaves along the road, but the trees around me did not move from their slum. Even more strange, I didn't have an awareness of animals or even bugs. No chirping crickets or frogs, no chipmunk or even mosquito. It was like, as soon as I stepped foot on this driveway, I entered another dimension. Still, despite my comfort with the silence, I felt a suspicious need to remain unnoticed. I skulked up the front steps, wincing with every board squeak. The moment I stepped within the crooked door frame, I was hit by an overwhelming atmosphere. Muggy heat compared to the dropping fall temperatures outside. The air I breathed in was almost like breathing in a cloud of dense concrete dust that refused to settle. At the same time, it smelled like a sponge soaked in used, festering toilet water was set on fire and had been slapped against every wall. All culminating to form a nauseating wave of decadence that pierced my chest and sent the rhythm of my heartbeat out of control. "Alice," I whispered with a low cough, "I know you hear me." She didn't say anything back, but her buzz was ever present, a bizarre reassurance. The living room was immediately struck by my beam as I whipped it around haphazardly. The house was a complete disaster, and that was saying something. I moved at a slow pace, sliding my feet instead of lifting them, observing as much as I could in this low light. It looks like the police were content in just doing their initial duty and then leaving this place to rot. The fridge was tipped forward, the couch was entirely missing, and the tables in the living room were warped as though they had been left in the rain. The carpet was stiff and crunchy, dust kicked up with every shuffle I made. Even the railing above, outside my old bedroom door, had a few broken poles knocked out to the floor below. "Geez, looks like there was a looting party," I said as I kicked an empty bottle while shining the light around. I moved toward the staircase that led to my room, nervous to head into the deeper blackness, but determined to explore and wait for Alice to speak. The second step I took up the stairs collapsed under my weight, bringing my foot down through the board. The wood scraped my ankle very slightly, but not bad enough to cause any concern. I pulled it out and pressed on toward my room. I noticed immediately that as I moved up the stairs, the paint on the walls was almost melted. Patches of dark spots and chipped drywall lined the stairs, and the steps themselves felt unstable. My brows raised. This doesn't make any sense. How could this place fall into such disrepair so quickly? I said, honestly confused. Being here now formed new pieces to a puzzle I didn't know existed. It occurred to me that the night I went into the basement to fix the light and got spooked led to the next morning where the refrigerator rotted away in mere hours. Curious. I kept the light bouncing back and forth from the steps to the wall on my left. I slowed my walk when I noticed a streak of blood descending down the staircase. The memory of my dad running for his life played back in my head. I did my best to avoid stepping on the copper stains. A loud, pleasured exhale slithered around my ears from within. I leaped from my skin as goosebumps crawled. Shit! You fucking scared me! She giggled softly to herself. Why have you been ignoring me? I whined frustratedly, reaching the top of the stairs. A humid crackle of her power tickling my veins made my nostrils wet, and her voice presented a tight ensnarement of my temples. You've got a lot of doors in your little mind, kid. I scoffed. Doors? The hell are you talking about? Locked away memories and emotions. A lot of history and truths to rifle through while you went all numb on me. I grit my teeth. I thought you weren't real. I thought I was crazy. And I was loving every second of your confusion. Now shut up and go into the bathroom. She suddenly demanded. Why? Because I need to talk to you, and I'd rather do it face to face, she urged. My eyes shifted back to focus, snapping toward my bedroom door. I saw that it was closed. A trickle of worry abruptly seized my attention. Wait, hold on. I need to check on something. She grunted. Seriously? Shut up a sec. She mumbled under her breath. All she did was want me to talk. Now this. The door handle to my room was missing, so I just pushed the door open. My room was surprisingly clean. Well, not clean, just not as messy as everything else. My heart thumped loudly as I entered my previous living space. I saw the old blood that stained my floor. My window was broken, and my mattress was gone. With silent footsteps, I shuffled to the closet and slid out a large box. I could tell by the mess that whoever gathered my things did so in a hurry and carelessly threw stuff around. All of the cardboard had grown moldy, and a rotten stench flowed from the closet. A damp and sticky smell that gave an impression of death and decay. Everything in the box was somewhat ruined. A birthday card now crumpled and torn, a stuffed otter with sickening yellow splotches, an art award too thin to hold, a #1 student ribbon with no color remaining, and a whole lot of meaningless rewards and memories. I cared for none of that. Only one thing in here had my interest. All the way at the bottom, still wrapped in cloth and newspaper, I removed my precious memento. Before unwrapping it, I swallowed hard, trying to stay hopeful. I want this. I need this to come home with me. It's all I have. It's all that keeps me connected to her. I let out a steady breath and removed the wrapping. To my dismay, the delicate unicorn inside was broken in two, body and head. My lips separated, dry, gently taking in air with wet eyes. Then they shut with a frustrated tongue click and harsh sigh. I took the note that was folded tightly with the destroyed shelf piece and stuffed it in my pocket. Tightening my back as I stood, I spun around and balled my fist, walking toward the door. The emptiness around me was never so apparent until now. Dissatisfied, I stood outside my door and wondered why the police disallowed me from returning. Sure, it was quickly debilitated and stank like noxious gas and putrid shit, but I still felt a modicum of familiarity with these walls. It still felt like home. I entered the bathroom. This time I ignored all the leftover features from the past and stared at the floor, listening to the tightness. Alice whispered, "The mirror." Commanded, I stepped inside and faced the broken glass shards still glued to the frame. There she was, supernaturally imposed in the dirty, reflective glass, a distorted imitation of my own face with stitched lips, black hair, and, of course, glowing purple eyes. She looked kind of sad, which unsettled me. We each gawked at each other, waiting for someone to initiate, but we both understood the importance of examination, delving into our polarizing souls. I cycled through my questions and concerns. So many I held on to for this moment, but now slipped away. "Talk. Why have you been ignoring me?" I started off low. She hummed, contemplative, folding her arms over her chest. In that same motion, I could feel an influence under my bones, like I wanted to mimic her. "At first, I thought it would be absolutely hysterical to watch you question my existence all this time. Drown in the contradictions and burn alive with angst." She gave a pleasured sigh. "A little insanity goes a long way for something like me." "That's fucking twisted." She glared pensive. "But I spent a lot of that time searching. When I did try to talk, somewhere in the span of 5 days in, I had trouble communicating." "Don't tell me you're shy." Her brows sharpened. "No. Before, you were so filled with rage that I expected my transition under your skin to be a lot easier. But then you got all fucking sad and shut me out." "My sadness affected you that much?" I questioned, shifting my feet over a crack on the floor. She gestured the sides of her head. "It put me in a haze, making me sleepy and tolerant," she griped. "But now, I feel more tethered. And that's why we're here tonight." "We're here because I wanted to come," I clarified myself as a sole motivator. "Not quite." She placed her fingers over her chest. "You feel it, as I do. Though what we conclude could not be further from similar." She let loose a teeth-showing grin. My left eye winced. "Why do you have to be so cryptic?" Her arms crossed again. "Those questions you have for me, I'd speak them now before it's too late." I licked my lips. "Okay, I don't really know where to begin. I guess I was wondering that, since you're a demon, does that mean you were like a human once, like me?" "Good place to start," she huffed. "Yes, in a way, we were once human, but not how you think. For reasons no one knows, my father's sin began gathering souls long ago, an experiment to create original life he could control. Us Tuffle are the result of crushing and mixing a cauldron of stolen human essence." "You said we and us?" I noted. Leering with a tilt of her head displayed cockiness. "You honestly didn't think that you were the only special kid, did you?" A lump formed in my throat. "Maybe. I didn't think about it too much, but I guess that makes sense." How many are there? That number is impossible to quantify. We're all given to humans with the one goal of killing and growing stronger. Eventually hunting down our own siblings in a battle for power. That sounds intense. So like a blood sport? More of a crown rush. At the top of the food chain is Sin's right-hand child, the firstborn Tuffle. Whoever takes her down takes her place. The thought of kids my age slaughtering each other with supernatural powers was a tough mental picture to handle. It sounded like total fiction, something completely separate to my situation, even with the proof right in front of me. My lungs went cold while considering my unwillful role in this. As for me, I'm the most recent Tuffle to be plucked, meaning you and I are at the bottom, the weakest, she said in a concerned way. Then her lips pursed. So you can imagine my frustration to have my host in a rut for the past number of days when we could have been ripping heads off. Yeah, well, that's not gonna happen, I declared, folding my arms as well, the lit flashlight aimed at my feet, giving my face an underglow. She licked the front of her teeth. It's too late for nobility. You're past the fugue state of delusion, and now only madness awaits. Accept and lean into it. I won't just let you hurt people. Shit, I never should have even taken the deal in the first place. Well, that's too bad and too late. You're a part of this game now, and there's no escaping it. At the end of our time together, you'll be ground up and coagulated into a new being, a new Tuffle. The Kim you are now will never exist again. An endless cycle. My mouth dropped, taking a tiny step back. But why? You mentioned the first Tuffle being his favorite or partner or whatever, so why is the goal to raise more demons just to kill her? No one knows her true origins. You could say she's almost like our boogeyman. I jostled the light around, hitting the mirror and blinding myself on accident before switching it to aim toward the open doorway into the hall. I got a quick tugging from the living room, a click that almost made me want to go there, but was quickly dismissed. Then I recentered to this mysterious being, invested in the deepening lore. What's her name? Alice rolled her shoulder, almost looking uncomfortable even thinking too much about them. Her upper lip trembled, and her face straightened. Chrism. My brain was going off the rails as more and more questions kept popping up. Little inconsequential details that I'd likely learn in the future, fighting for dominance over key facts I needed to establish now. So you were, in a way, just born when you were given to me? Then how is it you know all of this? She placed her finger to the side of her head, pointing to her brain. All of the Tuffle share a sort of information bank. Things such as each other's names and faces. Also being made from human souls grants us basic functionality and intelligence. However, a lot of our characteristics stem from our time surviving in our collective womb. So far, I was absorbing this information pretty well, though I couldn't escape one question on my mind. Alice, you said the collective goal of your siblings is to kill Chrism? Is that what you want as well? If she's so strong, isn't it stupid to try to take her out when you could just survive and live on your own? Why even play the game? She suddenly focused keenly on my eyes, angling hers and lowering her chin. Fierce, depraved. Survive? I'm through just surviving. You may have been beaten and bullied, but never starved or tortured at the very core of your being. Lost, swimming in a lake of black and snapping at every dangled soul like a withering trout. Her shoulders tensed to the point where I could see the definition of her bone and muscle. Those fuckers pushed me down, kept me just at the edge of dissemination before I even had the chance to breathe. No, killing Chrism isn't my goal in the end. I'm aiming for the real crown. Sin. I tried to speak, but the atmosphere around me was surprisingly thin and warm, choking me. With effort, I formed the words. You're joking, right? She shook her head. I will eradicate this world's life to grow so powerful that even sin will fall. My initial feeling was terror, so ambitious in such a gruesomely violent way, and yet, I think we just found our first real thing in common. A bead of sweat rolled down the side of my face, and I smiled. Sin is responsible for all of this. He killed my mother and made my life a living hell. I want him dead. So maybe we can work together as a team. Her head lifted, and the fury I felt sizzling off her lessened. Let me be perfectly clear. You are my meat suit. That's all. I have no choice but to work with you. A long blink. Although, unlike my brothers and sisters, I understand the value of partnership. As long as you know your true place. Beneath me. I sighed loudly, rubbing the back of my neck with a strained tension in my back. So much for simple, superhuman strength. What? She grunted. Nothing. I attempted to find a middle ground with our clashing emotions. So, your siblings, how much of a threat are they right now? At this rate, we'll be dead in the first encounter. Or we can pick up the list of targets you've made during late-night sobbing sessions. Stacy, perhaps? She chuckled. I bit the inside of my cheek. I'm not killing people. Simply wanting to be a good Samaritan won't stop you from feeding that pain. It's a part of you. You'll find that with me, it would be so much easier to just let those emotions run rampant when aroused. That's the point. But I don't want to be a homicidal maniac. I never wanted that. Don't give me that bullshit! You thrived off being in control of your father's life. I know you did. She growled in confidence. I huffed. Even if I enjoyed it, just a little bit, that doesn't change the fact that it's not who I want to be. Alice seemed to be getting impatient. Her gaze shifted slightly toward the door and the floor. Here and there, she would look around me. Then please, enlighten me, she sarcastically jeered. What's the point of having this power now, if you won't use it? My mouth opened to respond rashly, but then shut tight. Eyes dropped to the floor, then back to her. It's about having a backbone. The means to fight back. All my life I've been pushed around and treated like shit. I wanted, well, not this exactly, but the ability to stand up for myself and my friends. I want to protect the people I care about, just like they protected me. She was dumbfounded. Protect. Using the power you sold your literal soul for. You can't protect them unless you and I become stronger than this. To do so, we need to kill. It's the only way. I don't need to be all-powerful, only strong enough. You just said you wanted to kill sin. Now you contradict yourself by saying you don't want to kill. If they come for me, then I'll kill these tuffle or whatever, but not regular humans, not innocent people. You'll go on the hunt with me. Leave this place. The best way to protect them is to not involve them. My teeth clamped shut. She has a point. My siblings will find us either way, and they aren't merciful. If you are keen on sticking with these people, they will surely die once we are found. Out of nowhere, I got lightheaded, vision pulsating and adapting a light purple filter. For a moment, Alice's reflection switched to my face, displaying her purple glow overlapping my blue irises. It was like 1,000 hummingbirds started flapping their wings all at once in this tight room. What? I trembled. Alice flashed her teeth, smiling wide as can be. Hey, what's happening? I asked her, flipping my hands around. Staring at my palms, I watched my body as it uncontrollably bounced in place. A loud voice came from the doorway. Protect other humans. That is curious. My head whipped to the doorframe only a foot or so away. I felt this before. Back then, in the background of my life. It was like this energy had its own spoken language, and I only picked apart snippets to hear. Now, it was a conversation under my skin, translated and inverted as a reflection of myself. Stood against the hallway wall was an opaque shadow, grinning widely with their face partially illuminated by their purple glowing eyes.